Hello, and welcome to class. Today's lecture will be on an introduction to literary devices. I would like to begin with an introduction. My name is Ryan DeWolf, and I'm from Seattle, Washington. Have you ever heard of Seattle, Washington? If not, you might have heard about a couple of small companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and Starbucks that all came from my part of the world. However, as beautiful as that is, I'm very excited to be here in Thailand, and I would like to share with you my expectations for this class. As we get started, I just want everyone to keep in mind that we're going to be speaking English in our class. We're going to be respectful of others, we're going to listen, and we're going to volunteer and complete our tasks and assignment, participate, help with group discussions, all right? If you have any questions, I know this is a demo, but if my students were here, I would make sure that we get any questions out of the way before we begin. And if not, away we go. So, we begin with the discussion about what are literary devices. Open question to the audience, to the room. You at home, do you know what is a literary device? I think most of you will know some literary devices already, but you might not know that they are literary devices. Take a look and we'll see. First, it will be helpful to nail down a definition of what is a literary device. So, get your pens out and your notebooks. You want to write this down. A literary device is a technique used by a writer to convey information. So this is a very simple definition. A literary device is a technique used by a writer to convey information. All right, so that seems like a pretty straightforward place to begin. In fact, it's almost too simple because all writing uses literary devices. And like I already said, you already know some. So now we're gonna do a little brainstorming, see if we can think of some literary devices together, all right? If I were actually in, depending on the class and the style, the class size, we might have different groups, see if they can work together and brainstorm as many literary devices as they can think of beforehand. Or maybe this will be an individual assignment. I can have all the students take out a piece of paper, grab their notebooks and a pen, and just jot down what literary devices do I know, and how many can they get down on a piece of paper in 1 to 2, 3 minutes, just a short exercise. Then we'll come back together as a class. I like to get the students involved as early as possible in a lecture or in any class, really, even if that's through the use of humor, through these kind of personal participation assignments. Anyway, we're coming back into the class or into the group conversation, talking about brainstorming some literary devices that you guys all know. All right, so maybe this class, they know the devices, but they don't know maybe the English name or they don't know the technical name for it. So it's my job to facilitate, all right? What is it called when one or more characters are talking in a story? In a story, you have two characters talking to each other. You know, mom and dad, you have brother and sister, you've got two friends going to see a movie, and they're talking to each other. What is that conversation called? If you guessed dialogue, then you are correct. Dialogue is what we call when we have writing or text. This can also be in movies, but we'll talk about that later. When we have writing using quotation marks, and it's a direct quote of what one person said to somebody else. That is dialogue. All right? Good job. That is our first literary device. I like it. We're on a roll. Now, another literary device. What about this one? I'm as hungry as a horse. All right? So I've just taken two things and compared them. I see some of you are going to say comparison. You're on the right track, but it's not a comparison when I use like or as to compare two things. What is that literary device called? Or what is that called? Yes? Oh, excellent. Yes, it is a simile. Wow, you guys are really good at this. Okay, a simile is when we use like or as to compare two things that may or may not be very similar. Like, I am as happy as a clam that you got this right. Okay, let's see if we can get another literary device. Okay, this one is going to be similar to a simile, but we will not use like or as to compare these two things. So we're going to make another comparison, but this time we are not going to say like or as. Okay? All right. So, anybody have it? No? Will it help if I give you an example? Yes? Okay. I could say, you are the apple of my eye. Does anybody have it now? Oh, excellent. Very good. Right here in the front row. Wow, this class, you guys are on it. So, a metaphor. Exactly. A metaphor is when we compare two things directly without like or as. We cut out the middleman. We say, you are the apple of my eye. But everybody is pretty sure, like 99.999% sure, that you are in fact not an apple. So we're making a comparison of two things, a direct comparison of two things that are not the same. All right, so get that down in your notebooks. Metaphor, direct comparison of two things that are not the same. Also, we'll have the definitions in the slideshow for you so you can take it home in your notes. Next literary device, we're just going to do 5 today for today's short lesson. The next example is, how many of you guys have seen Romeo and Juliet? Oh wow, you guys all love Shakespeare? That's incredible. I didn't expect that at all. Okay, so great. Everybody knows Romeo and Juliet. Best case scenario. That's what I like to see. Just kidding. So Romeo and Juliet, it's a very famous play for those of you who don't know. And it's very famous because it's a love story, but both of the lovers die. So it's a tragedy. It's very sad. You watch it, you'll cry. You laugh, you'll cry. You'll lose 15 pounds. It's amazing. All right? Romeo and Juliet. In the very beginning of the play, Romeo says, my life were better ended by their hate than death prolonged, wanting of thy love. He says it in the first half of the play, I should say. So yeah, my life were better ended by their hate than death prolonged, wanting of thy love. So what he's saying is, I'd rather die than be alive without you. And this is foreshadowing. It's like a hint about the future, like what's gonna happen? Is this gonna be a sad love story? He's already saying, I'd rather die than live without you. So that is foreshadowing. It is a hint about something that's gonna come in the future. Spoilers, Romeo and Juliet, they don't make it out alive. Okay, our very last example of a literary device. In the first half of class, see if you guys can guess what is this one. She sells seashells by the seashore. Okay, I see a lot of looks of recognition. You definitely know what I'm talking about on this one. Yeah, what is it? Okay, so it's technically more than one, but the category of this is alliteration. Yeah, very good. Alliteration is when we repeat the same sound again and again and again, and in a sentence or a poem or a line. And what happens when we repeat the same sound so many times like that? She says seashells by the seashore. What does that do? Does anybody have a guess? What does it mean? Like, why do we do it? Yeah, good. Exactly. She sells seashores. When I said it the first time, a lot of you were like, I've heard that before. You recognized it. And that's something that's very, very interesting and very universal with alliteration. Sometimes when we say the same sound again and again and again, it helps our brains to remember it. And that is what alliteration is doing. It's catching our attention. It's like putting a spotlight on this sentence, like, hey, look over here. Some very good examples of alliteration. I don't know if very many of you guys are Harry Potter fans. I don't know if anyone who likes Harry Potters. If you're reading the books, you see a lot of alliteration. J.K. Rowling loves alliteration. She's got alliteration in the chapter titles, especially. Like we have Flight of the Fat Lady. We have the F's, like choo choo. We have cat, rat, and dog, and that's the at, and the at pattern, only if it's broken, but we still get it in the title. And then there are many, many other examples we can find throughout literature, especially like in the example that we already looked at in songs and in poetry. We definitely get a lot of alliteration. We'll see somebody's big blue eyes, give us some extra sounds to help us notice and to help us recognize and remember. So, now that we know, we've gone through five different literary devices. Let's recap them again really fast, all right? Shall we? Let's go through them again. What is the first literary device? Can I get a volunteer? Good. Dialogue. Next, we have, thank you, row 2, simile, very nice. Next one, it's a direct comparison, metaphor. Wow, you guys are gonna be good, all right. Next one, you'll know about it in a minute. Oh, that's right, foreshadowing. And last one, repeated sounds. We call that alliteration. Very good job, guys. Very nice work. Okay, now that we know these 5 literary devices, I think for many of you, you have heard or at least used them, even if you don't use the formal name of it. Like, what is this device? We are never thinking about that when we're saying that I'm as hungry as a hippo, right? I'm not thinking, what literary device could I use to let my friends know that I'm extremely hungry? Nobody's doing this. We don't always know what they are, but in this class, we're gonna be able to recognize them, learn how to recognize them, read and recognize them in many different kinds of writing, all the way from short stories to poetry. We'll have flash fiction. We might be able to take a look at some comics as literature, which is always very exciting and kind of mind-blowing, especially for the conversation about what is a literary device. And throughout this lesson, we'll be able to, or throughout this course, we'll be able to see how literary devices act upon the theme of the different work. So we'll look at the devices and how the writing is built, like the different techniques that the writer uses, and then what are the messages that are conveyed? What themes do we see? And do those devices help us get to those themes? And that is kind of when we're talking about literature or good writing, is when we're able to see that like these devices are successful in showing us the meaning, and very often the feeling is very important, a very important part of the meaning. And that's what these devices help writers do. It gives writers like you, like everybody who's ever written a sentence, a paragraph, maybe a poem, and it's where you want to give somebody else information, somebody else a feeling. How are you feeling? What do you know? What do you need help with is another thing that we learn when we're writing, all right? So literary devices are going to help us out in a host of ways throughout this course and this term. I'm very excited to be here with you this morning again, or afternoon. Thank you very much for your time and for your consideration. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Ryan D. Wolf, and thank you.